Welcome everybody into the latest edition of ESPN FC. Alongside Alejandro Moreno, Steve Nicol, I am Sebastian Salazar. On a day where not one, but two English teams punched their ticket into the last four of the Champions League. Manchester City and Liverpool boys are into the semi-finals. Let's start at the Wanda Metropolitano, where Manchester City took a 1-0 lead from the first leg into the second leg. This game played out to a scoreless draw. Just the one shot on goal in this for Manchester City. Only 3 shots on goal for Atletico Madrid. And in the end, Manchester City advance to the semi-finals. Atleti finishing the match with 10 men. Felipe sent off in stoppage time in the first half. Craig Burley and Gemma Soler to join us in just a second. But gentlemen, we'll start here in studio. Ale, a very different game from the first leg. A very different Atleti from the first leg.
Yeah. Honestly, for those of us that had the pleasure, quote unquote, of watching Atletico Madrid last week, you sort of have to ask the question, where was the performance that you showcased today, where at times you took the ball away from Manchester City, where you were willing to pressure higher up the field? Now, it doesn't mean that they were creating a bunch of chances. It doesn't mean that they were dominant. They were at times still conservative, but with a willingness to actually go on the attack and be a threat to Manchester City, which then pushed Manchester City back and forced Manchester City into areas they did not want to be. Now, what we saw at the end of the game from Atletico Madrid, that people are talking about reprehensible behavior, disgraceful, and all of these things, I'm actually surprised that it took that long for Atletico Madrid to take the game to that sort of level, to the street fight. I thought this was going to happen much earlier, which by the way, actually took Manchester City off their game. Now they were fighting, and when it comes down to a fight, Atletico Madrid is going to win that. I thought Atletico Madrid would be doing that earlier in the game so that Manchester City would stop playing, and maybe through that frustration, Atletico Madrid would take advantage of that and eventually perhaps create enough opportunities for them to get back in the game. In the end, they just don't do enough offensively.
Stevie, you called Atleti's approach in the first leg a joke.
Yep.
What about today?
Well, it couldn't have gotten any worse from the first leg, so they were always going to be better. And they're at home, and they've got a crowd behind them, and they're 1-0 down. So, you know, they really didn't have an awful lot of choice. And I guess the one thing we could say, it wasn't until the last 15 minutes where it really looked as though they had something. They looked as though they had the teeth nearly on the bone. But it took them nearly 2 games to do that. And even at the end, when Ali's talking about, well, eventually they started making it a fight, you're at the end of the game, and you can't afford to give stupid fouls away and delay the game. And that's what they did. So it's one thing to say, yes, they were behaving the way they did, but it didn't do them any favours because they didn't have time. Had they done this 20 minutes previously or 30 minutes previously, maybe they would have got something from it. Certainly wouldn't have helped them, Felipe getting sent off. But maybe with the crowd and everything else, they might have fought their way to try and get a goal and get extra time. So, for me, they went about the whole thing the wrong way, and I couldn't believe my eyes. I thought I was watching the Pied Piper. At the end of the game, they've just got knocked out, the Champions League, 1-0. They've had maybe 2 chances maximum in 2 games, but yet the stadium, to a man and woman and child, are on their feet with their scarves in the air, singing and clapping Simeone like he's some sort of messiah. Give a break.
Craig, to Stevie's point, what do we make of Simeone here? This is a guy who obviously we criticized a lot after the first leg, but isn't this exactly what he wanted, to keep it 0-0, to have that chance late? And Atleti had a moment late in the game where they very easily could have tied the series.
Well, I think he wanted to win the game, which he didn't do. And as Ali said, I was expecting them to start off the game the way they finished it at the Etihad, which was all the dirty tricks. To Stevie's point, and he's right, Simeone has this crowd believing that they are wronged, that the officials are against them, that everybody's against them, that La Liga's against them, that UEFA's against them, that everything's against them. And that's why they're applauding him, they're following him. He's sarcastically clapping the officials, he'll say he wasn't, as if they were wrong to send Felipe off. When quite frankly, today and other days, he was a thug. Here we have Atletico Madrid, who had 4 halves of football, 2 90 minutes, and only turned up for 25% of that, one half. And by the way, when they do turn up, they've got really good players. They've got real quality in that team. But it's such a negative approach. And I don't say this very often. And it's not because it was against an English team. It could have been Villarreal. It could have been Benfica. I'm absolutely delighted that they are out. Because quite frankly, amongst other things, he has assembled an expensively bunch of thugs, right? Now, that maybe is their mantra. But I'm sorry, it reminds me at times of the Spanish teams of the 70s and the 80s when it was lawless. And I thought we were bringing out laws of the game to try and help some of these players. And look, I'm not saying City are a bunch of angels here, not at all. But when you see the Felipe challenge on Foden in the first half that goes unchallenged, you see Savic who'd lost the plot even from the first 45 minutes. And then you see the follow-through from Felipe on the second yellow when there's absolutely no need. They're a mirror image of their manager, I'm afraid. And for what they've spent, I think they should be better than that. So I, for one, am absolutely delighted they're going no further in this competition.
Gemma, you were there. I wonder about your perspective. One, on what the guys are talking about, right? The fact that this team has eliminated Atleti and yet the fans are still applauding Simeone. And then beyond that, it seemed like something happened in the tunnel afterwards. What'd you see?
Oh, yes, I was there in the tunnel. Well, it's a club that it's particular. They were very depressed, and then this coach, who was a hero as a player, comes and puts them back, being on the top spot in Spain, and also getting to two Champions League finals. So that gives Simeone a lot of credit. And this is a team made of this, what I have in my bag, coraje y corazón. It's heart and soul, courage. So this public, this fan base are for that. And their players, they fight a lot today. Even they did it with the first 45. I'm totally agree with the analysis of Craig was saying. First 45 were the same as we saw in the Etihad. They did nothing. Cholo's plan was, let's make these players tired because they come from a 2-2 draw against Liverpool. They are going to be exhausting. Just two players were not in that game, Gundogan and Mahrez. And it worked it out because in the second half, Atletico, when he does the three changes, when Correa, De Paul and Carrasco go to the field, they even got more ball, more possession than Manchester City. And Man City were extremely uncomfortable because they were not having the ball and they suffer a lot. Guardiola actually, he said that they suffer and it was a tough moment, but they were able to resist. So that's why the fan base stays there and clubs their players. They are the defending champions in Spain, in La Liga. So that's something huge for this club. And I know this is the most talented and most expensive start or squad that Simeone has ever had. But he tried to play something a little bit better at the beginning of the season, and it didn't really work it well for him, probably because he doesn't believe in that system of football with more attack. So he decided to go back to what he believes, and what he believes is trying to do what he did in the Etihad. It almost worked for him because City just had two shots, and he did the same here, and it almost got for him. But eventually, I think the best team in the quarterfinals go through, and so that team is Man City, of course.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.